Okay, in the short term, I actually think the euro is going to become stronger. The only real reason, there's no fundamental reason for the euro to strengthen, but there's a huge short position in euro, very close to a record position. And that's enough to drive euro up to the next major resistance level. There's no real major resistance until 130. When you get to 130 against the dollar, there's a round number, there's former support from the old head and shoulders up there, and there's a couple of big Fibonacci numbers up there, all in the 130 area. So short term, I think euro is actually going to go higher, a little counterintuitive, right? I think it's actually going to go up in the short term, and then in the longer term, then you're going to see it go 125, maybe sub 120. I don't know if it goes all the way back to parity, because remember, you're trading it against the dollar, and the dollar could also become weak, because you never know if Bernanke's going to start quantitative easing part 3 or some similar program. So I'm not sold on the idea that the euro becomes incredibly weak. But I do think it's going to go up a little bit, it's going to hit 130, maybe it goes a little bit higher, and then you're going to see it head down 125, maybe below 120, but not much farther than that. The answer is no. The Swiss National Bank is not going to be able to maintain the 120 level on Euro Swiss. Now last year I was actually betting on them to raise the ceiling, and I had some pretty good trades because every time there was a rumor that the Swiss National Bank was going to raise the ceiling, it would pop up, you could take profits, and then buy it when it floats back down. But you'll notice that those pops are becoming fewer and far between. And now we know that the Swiss National Bank is purchasing, in the month of May, some estimate that they purchased $60 billion worth, or 60 billion euros. And that is just tremendous, and it's unsustainable. So I think maybe the peg will last for another month or two, and then I think you're going to see 110, 105 on Euro Swiss. So I am shorting Euro Swiss from here.
So you are a seller in the Euro Swiss?
I was on the side of the Swiss National Bank before, but as the time goes on, you see, any of these interventions can work for a while. But after a while, it becomes harder and harder to maintain it, and nothing works forever in this market. They're trying to hold back natural forces. They're trying to hold up the world, and it's just not, they can get away with it for a while, but the Swiss National Bank can't get away with this forever. I think they have another month or two at most. I'm already short, but I'm short small. If it pops up, I'll short more. If they raise the floor, I'll just dump it, then I'll say, okay, I'm wrong. But I don't think they're going to raise the floor. If they're spending 60 billion just to keep it where it is, then raising the floor would be incredibly expensive. And I think the true price of Euro Swiss is around parity right now. If the Swiss National Bank were to just step aside, I think you'd see it drop 2,000 pips in a heartbeat. Okay, great question. Gold has been very volatile. I think you're going to see gold over the short term. I don't expect too much to happen with gold because the dollar is strong right now. When the dollar is strong, gold stays down. But by the end of the year, I think the dollar is going to start to weaken, and I think you could see gold at 1,800, 1,900 an ounce by year end.
Yeah, okay. So the price, the real price that the gold could have, if we are talking about the real market, but right now the gold is 1,800. But some experts are saying that the gold, maybe the real price could be 5,000 or 4,000.
Well, listen, because it's all relative. If you compare currencies to gold, if you look back at, for example, in Germany in 1923, gold went up to 100 trillion German marks an ounce. So it really depends on how much debasement of the currency occurs. But you see, they can print a lot of money and you will not see the effects until you start to see economic recovery. When you see economic recovery, that's when I think gold's really going to take off. I think you'll see 1,800, 1,900 by the end of the year. But it's a long, slow process. But it could be in coming years, you'll see $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 an ounce. I think it will happen. But you won't see it begin until the economy really begins to recover. That's a great question. Germany doesn't want to print money because there's a collective memory of 1923, 1924, when they went through hyperinflation. Now, when you've lived through hyperinflation, it is something that you never want to repeat again. And that's what is going on in Germany. That's why Germany is so reluctant to print money, and that's why they're in favor of austerity, because there's a very strong collective memory of what happens in hyperinflation. Now, in the United States, for example, nobody who's alive in the United States has lived through hyperinflation unless they've lived in a different country. So really, the United States, we don't have that collective memory, so we're much more likely to fall prey to that. But the Germans will not allow that to happen because it's too fresh in the memory what happened in the 1920s. It's really kind of hard to say. Right now, Obama seems to be favored to win, certainly not based on anything that he's done as far as the economy is concerned or the dollar. But you know, it's just it's not a fantastic choice. I think the American people don't perceive that either of these candidates is really going to be a great president or is going to fix the economy tremendously. I think Romney has a chance to be that person. In other words, we know that Romney has run a company successfully, and perhaps he will be able to run an economy successfully. There's a chance that he can. I think Obama, we've already seen Obama in that, you know, he's a Keynesian, and he supports Keynesian policies. He supports Ben Bernanke, Tim Geithner. He gave the world Tim Geithner. And I think we've seen about, you know, we will continue to see the same results. If we continue to see the same president, we will continue to see the same results. If we see a different president, things might not get better. Romney might not be any better, but there's a chance he might be better. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, whatever, Obama or Romney, Bernanke will hold the chair.
Well, Bernanke, I think, is going to be around for a while no matter what. You know, it's interesting. We talked earlier about how Fed chairman doesn't really have to resign. Might resign voluntarily at some point if asked, but doesn't really have to. And the president doesn't really control that. So Fed chairman is actually quite a powerful position. You're not elected, you're appointed, and you really don't have to leave if you don't want to until your term expires. And you know, that makes Bernanke a very powerful person. But the question is, even if Bernanke were to leave, how do we know that we're not going to get someone who's just like Bernanke? Because that type of economics, while I think we can see that Keynesian economics is definitely a failure, it definitely does not work, at the same time, these are the type of people who are in power at the higher institutions. These are the type of people who are at Harvard and Yale and Oxford and all the big schools. You see they have their economics professors tend to be of that ilk. So I don't necessarily think Bernanke's replacement will be any better depending on who the replacement is.